I am a girl who has always lived in a village. Even now, I am still part of this quiet, humble place. I have always been a quiet, withdrawn young girl, never one to play with other children or join in their games. That is why this horror I experienced at 19 left such a lasting mark on me. I was studying experimental science, and to better understand how to bandage and treat wounds, I would often go to the clinic for an internship of sorts. My father worked there as a doctor, and he was like a teacher to me, patiently showing me how to do these things. One night, around midnight, my cousin and I were at the clinic. My father, a little tired, said, "Let's go. No one else is coming." We agreed. Our house was far away, close to the edge of the woods. The trees were green and beautiful during the day, but at night the woods seemed to hold their own eerie secrets. I wasn't afraid, though. My father was with us, and his presence gave me courage. In short, we set off. The night was silent except for the crunch of our own steps, until we heard it. Another sound. Footsteps. At first, I told myself it was nothing, a trick of my imagination, but the sound grew closer and faster, dry leaves snapping under unseen feet. My father sensed it too. Without a word, he grabbed my hand and Aya's, and we began to run. His breath came in hurried whispers. He was reciting something under his breath. I asked myself, why is he reciting? Isn't it just an animal? At first I thought it was, but the way it followed, the weight in its steps, I understood it was something else. We barely made it home. My father slammed the door shut and locked it tight. He tried to keep us calm, saying, "It's nothing." But then he looked at my mother and nodded. She gasped, "Oh my dear God." My father kept reciting. My mother began to pray, her voice trembling. I asked what was wrong, but she only said, "There is nothing to be afraid of." Go to your room and sleep well, but I couldn't shake the dread pressing against my chest. I wanted to stay with my father. You might call it childish, but you can't imagine the cold fear that had already sunk into me. My cousin fell asleep quickly. My mother lay beside me. Somehow my eyes closed too, but in the darkness of sleep, a nightmare began. Several horrible creatures stood before me in the darkness. Their faces were tall and twisted, their eyes hollow and glowing faintly. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand, harsh, grating sounds like stones grinding together. But then, one of them turned to me and hissed in a voice I did understand, "We have to kill your father." At the sound of my father's name, my body went cold. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My scream caught in my throat. Suddenly, I jolted awake. It was 5 in the morning. Sweat clung to my skin, and my heart pounded like a drum. I stumbled from my room and found my father sitting at the table, writing the name of God over and over on scraps of paper. He looked up at me and smiled gently. "Are you awake, my sweet daughter?" I went to his side. His brow furrowed when he saw my face. "What's wrong, my dear?" "I'm fine, father. I just had a bad dream," I whispered. He stroked my hair softly. "Don't be afraid of anything. You are a brave girl. It was only a nightmare." With his hand on my hair, my eyes grew heavy, and I drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep. When I woke later in the morning, the house felt empty. My father was gone. My mother's voice trembled as she told me, "He's gone to the woods." A deep worry gripped me. "I'll go after him," I said. "No," my mother warned. "You'll get lost." But my heart wouldn't let me stay. Ignoring her, I slipped out and went towards the woods. The trees closed around me like walls. The air felt different, heavy and strange. Then, somewhere ahead, a low sound. A groan. I stepped closer, the leaves crunching under my shoes. In a small clearing, I saw him. A young man, maybe 23, lying on the ground. His legs were bleeding, his old black clothes torn and muddy. His lips moved as though he wanted to speak, but only a faint, broken whisper came out. I went to help him. At first, he shrank back, eyes wide with fear. "Don't be afraid of me," I said softly. "I'm a doctor." "Let me help you." He hesitated, then slowly showed me his legs. The wounds were terrible, as if something had bitten straight through flesh. Something larger than a dog, something I could not name. I carried a small bag of medical supplies. Kneeling on the damp earth, I cleaned and bandaged the wound. Even now, I remember his face clearly. Black hair falling into pale skin, eyes the colour of cold blue glass. His clothes were strange, like those worn by old Ottoman princes, faded velvet and frayed embroidery. He never spoke. He only kept his head bowed as though ashamed or hiding something. Then, without a word, he rose to his feet, nodded once in silent thanks and turned away. I opened my mouth to call after him, but in an instant, he was gone. The wood swallowed him whole. For a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it. But no, the blood was still on my hands, and the bandage roll was lighter. I had touched him. I had bandaged his wound. The sky had begun to dim, and the woods felt heavier, darker. I sensed eyes on me from far away. Fear crawled up my spine. I began to run. Then, through the trees, I saw my father. Relief crashed over me like water. I ran to him and clung to him. "Where were you, my child?" he asked, his voice tight. "Let's go home, quickly." But there was something strange in his tone, something distant. It was as if his eyes weren't his own. Before I could speak, a shape emerged from the shadows. A creature like a dog, but larger, its body wrong, its fangs glinting. My breath caught. I trembled, but my father did not. He began muttering words under his breath, low and sharp, and the creature flinched, retreating. Then, suddenly, he kicked it hard. The beast let out a terrible, ear-splitting cry, and in that moment, the man I thought was my father shimmered like water. His face, his body shifted before my eyes, and for a heartbeat, he wasn't my father at all. He was the young man from the woods. I fainted from fear. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at home. My head throbbed. The room looked normal, too normal, as if nothing had happened. My father was sitting nearby, watching me with worried eyes. "Father," my voice was a whisper, "who brought me here? Who found me?" He blinked, surprised by the question. "We found you fainted near the door," he said quietly. Something in his tone chilled me. We? Who was we? And how had I ended up at the door of our house, when the last thing I remembered was the woods, and the young man's face flickering where my father's should have been?